Hello, you guys. Welcome back to another episode of The I World. If this is your first time tuning in, my name is Brittany, and I am so excited to be here with you on this midweek little pick-me-up. But no matter when you're tuning into this, if you're more of a podcast on the weekend kind of girl, if you listen right as the podcast episode drops, just know that I am so grateful you're here with me today. And if you are somebody who tunes in every week, and if you're watching this on YouTube, you may have picked up by now that this episode already looks a little bit different. First of all, I'm normally recording behind me on my couch. And second of all, I normally have my co-host with me, Talia, my sister. Talia is not here this week because she actually had like a kind of bad injury lifting at the gym and was in so much back pain. I'm not going to tell her whole story for her because she might want to talk about it next week, but I totally sympathize with her because I have had back issues over the years and it is painful. So we're going to just let her sit this one out. But we also missed last week, and one of my major goals when we recommitted to this podcast and relaunching it after our kind of 6-month hiatus of it is that I really wanted to be consistent with putting out an episode every single week. And something that consistency has really aided me in is showing me the power of how good it feels to consistently show up for yourself, whether it be in something like a podcast or a business or a routine. And that's kind of what I want to talk to you guys about today anyway. And it actually is kind of a nice episode to record alone and also listen to alone. So this episode is all going to be about the relationship with yourself and some of the things that I've realized in this last 45 days, ending 2024, launching 2025 with a bang. You know, a lot of people have been posting on social media and the internet that January just dragged on. So many tragedies happened in January. And yes, that is all true. I don't want to take away from any of the horrible things happening in the world because there has been some crazy stuff happening in January. We had the fires in LA. We have had plane crashes and helicopter crashes. I feel like every time I open social media, I'm seeing something crazy like that. And so my heart goes out to everybody who is going through difficulties. However, I do want to say that where your attention goes, your energy flows. And I just don't tend to pour so much time and energy into negative things happening in the world because honestly, that's kind of where I got to a place where I was my least happy and least abundant self, when I was so involved in politics and I cared so much about things that were literally beyond my control. There's nothing that I can physically do about these things happening. And I chose to focus on my world. And for some of you guys, this might seem out of touch or ignorant, but I want to just tell you guys that when you focus on positive things, energy flows that way as well. So it really is a mindset shift, and some people are going to get it and some people are not going to get it. But if you want to be happier and more abundant and have more positive energy in your life, this podcast and this episode is for you. We are very much not about victim mentality here, and sometimes you are literally a victim, but sometimes you just like to kind of focus on negative stuff because you're just stuck in that victim mentality, whether something directly affects you or not. But we're not going to focus on all of that. We're going to just make that statement and move on because this episode really is for the girls and the guys who want to step into the most abundant version of themselves and the most aligned version of themselves. And that's literally what this episode is about. So like I said, this is a great episode to tune into if you are getting ready in the morning, you want to have a little pick-me-up and a mindset shift for your day. This is a great episode to listen to if you are heading to the gym and you're going to walk on the treadmill for the next 20, 30 minutes. Maybe you're going to go for your hot girl walk if it's warm where you are. It is not warm here in New York. But once again, we're focusing on the positives. If you're new here and you don't know, about 45 days ago, my family's small business that I worked at for 10 years closed. And I had a lot of emotions tied to this, but also I had this version of myself attached to this reality that I was living. And this reality was a little bit tied to this victim mentality and a little bit tied to this, these are just my circumstances. There's nothing that I can do. And that really wasn't true. But I really do believe that when you are trying to step into an aligned version of yourself and you're setting up all of the pieces so that it can happen, God really comes in, or the universe if you're not someone who believes in God, but I do believe in God. And I also just want to say that my belief in God and my relationship with God actually came from believing in the universe and believing in a higher power. And then I eventually found my connection with God after years of not having it, because I was so focused on the tragedies of the world and the negative stuff happening that I really drifted away from a happy existence. And so if you kind of feel like you're somebody where you feel like the odds are always stacked against you and things are just not working out for you, the goal of this episode is to help you reframe your life. February holds a very special place in my heart because it was about, I think, 3 years ago, either 2 or 3 years ago, that I started my manifestation journey. And I started this journey to alignment, which I don't even think I'm fully there yet. I don't know if you can ever fully be there, because I think we're always evolving into the next version of ourselves that is just going to bring us a little bit more happiness and a little bit more fulfillment. And there's so much that comes with detaching from material things and societal norms to become that happiest self. I think it also fluctuates based on what's going on in your life and your circumstances, but the idea is that your circumstances do not control you, and you actually control how you react to them and your life. Now, I want to focus a little bit on value with you guys, and I want you guys to think really, really deeply right now about how you view yourself. If you were to describe yourself genuinely, like if someone said, tell me about yourself, how would you describe yourself? Are you somebody that's like a little bit self-deprecating, or are you somebody that is a more positive person? For some reason, I think that society teaches us to have a kind of negative view of ourselves, or like almost feel shame to like flatter yourself or to talk highly about yourself. And we almost end up falling into these patterns where like we get praise or we get value from other people lifting us up because we are so down on ourselves. I actually just saw a clip from a Theo Von podcast episode with Tony Robbins, and he kind of framed this for me. It's almost what set all of these thoughts in motion for me. And in the episode, he says something to Tony along the lines of, it's really hard for me to be proud of myself. It's almost like I'm ashamed to be proud of myself. Instead of Tony saying like, no, Theo, you have so much to be proud of. Look at everything you've done. He says to him, stop saying that. Stop saying that, because what you're doing is you're wiring your brain to think that way genuinely about yourself, and to have that shame and to have that kind of negative connotation with your success is to almost be like ashamed to say like, yeah, I'm so successful. So talking to yourself is a small part of this like equation that I want to paint for you tonight, which is building a relationship with yourself. So I want to kind of take you on the journey of the last 45 days for me, because I went from somebody who ran a business, or at least was trying to run a business, my social media content creation business that I run alongside Talia, trying to find clients, trying to like kind of do that on our days off, also running a network marketing business that like, guys, is really successful. It's something I've make my most of my income from. I made over 6 figures in 2024 through my network marketing business, doing it alongside my full-time job that I also worked 5 days a week at, and trying to establish these new businesses that we started in 2024, also alongside having a podcast. In 2024, alongside all of those things, I also got married. I also went and took a spontaneous trip to see Taylor Swift in Madrid. I went on multiple trips and vacations. I was in Italy for almost a month. My life was so packed and so busy that I really didn't have any time to spend with myself. Every moment was scheduled, programmed, crammed into. I had no time to pour into myself. Now, in 2024, I did start establishing some routines that I think were the first stepping stone for me. For example, doing my gratitude journal. Sitting with myself every morning and writing some gratitude down was one way that I got to spend time with myself. But it almost in a way can feel like a chore if you're not really being intentional with it. You're just like, oh, I got to get this done. 2 was doing my skincare routine. I know that sounds so silly, but when you're doing your skincare, you literally have to be off of your phone. Like you have to sit there, look yourself in the mirror, use your hands. You can't escape yourself. And whether you're like tuning into a podcast or listening to music, it really is a time that you're alone with your thoughts. Now, I'm going to be so real with you guys. Being alone with my thoughts the last 45 days has been like very scary at times. And I'm somebody who, like, I pride myself on having a good mindset. I feel like I'm really good at helping coach other people and helping redirect other people. I mean, I feel like I do it even on this podcast. But being alone with your thoughts and yourself can be a really scary place when you're first starting out, because you have to rewire your brain to think differently than what society teaches you. And so if you start spending a lot of time with yourself, you want to make sure you're establishing good thought patterns and good routines. So things that like were part of my routine that were really harmful that I did not even really realize, and I wouldn't have even wanted someone to point them out to me or say it to me, because I would have fell right into that victim mentality of like, I'm too busy, is the food that I was consuming and eating. I was eating so much, like, not always junk food, but like fast food, eating out, picking up, taking out. The amount of money I've spent on takeout, DoorDash, fast food, I don't even want to know. Like, I don't even want to go through the credit card statements and find out the answer. But I never knew how to cook. And that was just what I said. I don't know how to cook, and I just spent all day out of the house, and I'm tired, and I want to eat something quickly. I want to sit on the couch. I want to watch TV, and I want to go to sleep, and I want to wake up tomorrow, and I want to do it all over again. And I'll rush out the door, and I'll get a bagel on the way to work, and I'll pick something up on the way home. And it was such a horrible routine. It's really funny because I do see like this kind of divide online between women who are really stepping into their like more feminine energy and then women who are really in their masculine energy. And I am definitely somebody who has been in her masculine energy for a long time and shifting into a more feminine energy now that I'm home. Even though I'm still craving success, there is more of that kind of like feminine energy of like cooking a meal and doing the dishes and, you know, cleaning the house. Like, these sound kind of like silly, stereotypical kind of like, I can't even believe I'm saying it right now. But having these routines, it's doing something for me mentally that's peaceful. And I don't know if it's something that's in my nature, and it's something that I was just like oppressing because I was just so dedicated to the hustle for so long. But this masculine energy that like kind of consumed me, I think was kind of damaging because it suppressed a lot of like emotions and feelings that I then was left to face when I was alone with my thoughts. It's been an interesting shift because even in my relationship, like I've had to kind of tell my husband, like, I don't want to be this way anymore. I don't want to be this kind of like leader all the time. Sometimes I want you to lead the way. And I mean, he's been very like receptive to it, which is nice, but it's definitely a shift from the way I've always been. I've always been the kind of person also in my relationship where it's been like, this is what I want to do. This is what we're doing. If I have to do it myself, I'll do it myself. And now I'm kind of stepping into this version of myself where I'm like, I want to be more of a team. I want to do things together. I want to feel supported. It's so interesting. I'm experiencing so many shifts, and I don't know if you guys can relate who are tuning into this. I don't know if it's, you know, the content we're consuming. I don't know if it's just the way of the world right now. It could be my age, but these are all things that are like really taking over my brain, especially in this last 45 days being home. Now, not only was I faced with the fact that I was eating really poorly, a really bad routine that established between my husband and I is that we never ate meals together. And that's something that I really want to change moving into 2025. And I have actually like had to say to my husband, like, hey, I'm cooking you dinner. Like, I want you to sit at the counter and eat it here with me instead of like taking it up to your room, because we just kind of became passing ships in the night because I always kind of harnessed this more masculine energy of like, it doesn't matter, I'm tired, you're tired, like whatever, instead of wanting that more nurturing feel. And it really is a give and take, because it takes being vulnerable with your partner to say like, hey, I know I've been this way and I don't want to be this way anymore. And for them to kind of hopefully meet you halfway with that. Now, I do think this relationship with yourself is very much mind, body, spirit. So you have to think about the things that are going to feed your mind, feed your body, and feed your spirit. Now, I don't know if I've said this on the podcast before. I think I've said it somewhere, but I am a huge Taylor Swift fan, like huge Taylor Swift fan. And I actually was somebody who was always listening to podcasts. And then when Taylor Swift's Tortured Poets Department album came out, I just started binging that, and I just started listening to it over and over and over again. And I don't know why, I just really tap into this sad girl music. And then over the last few months, I've really been listening to a lot of Billie Eilish, same kind of vibe. It's just I love listening to it. It scratches an itch for me, but it's just this sad girl mentality in music. And I found that it was really affecting everything in my life, my relationships, how I just felt when I woke up in the morning, because I'm not waking up excited or motivated. I'm waking up and listening to this kind of music that's kind of sad and lonely and depressing. And don't get me wrong, Swiftie for life. But being intentional with how you are feeding your mind is huge. So I'm really more of a podcast person over reading a book. And something that I found myself doing is popping on a Wayne Dyer YouTube video, or I actually just found a podcast. I don't remember what it's called, but it's something about feelings, and I really like it. I'm gonna have to tell you guys next week when we come back what podcast it is, but I'm really liking it, and I just feel like I need to tap more into feeding my brain. Now, a huge part of this as well is routine. So part of your mind is what your routine looks like: waking up early, getting up, having a routine in the morning, instead of just waking up, throwing on sweatpants, which, don't get me wrong, I wear sweatpants most of the time, but wearing cute pajamas even at night or in the morning, it did start to alter something in my brain chemistry where it just made me feel more romanticized. And I feel like Talia and I talk about this a lot on the podcast, but romanticizing your life, it does something for your mind. Now, I really do think that all of these things, mind, body, spirit, they tie together so strongly. So something that really affected my brain and my mind was my body. Now, I've talked about this on the podcast. I have a whole episode dedicated to it, but I've lost over 115 pounds this year. I've been at not this year, actually, over the last 2 years. And I've been a little bit at a stalemate. I don't know if that's the right word. But I've been a little bit stuck. But now that I am home and I'm cooking more meals and I'm more intentional about the food that I'm putting in my body, it does something for my mind. I feel a kind of pride in cooking breakfast and eating breakfast, which is a meal that I oftentimes skipped, or making a great dinner and having pride in the food that I made and trying a new recipe and it actually being good. These were all things that were self-esteem boosters for me. And then going to yoga. Now, going to yoga has been a huge shift for me, and it's something I started doing a year ago, but I actually bought a class card in October, and my class card is going to run out in less than a month. So I've been going more often than not because I had a bunch of classes left on it. And it is so good for my mind because when I'm in that yoga room, I'm off of my phone. I'm detached from, the outside noise. And the thing I really love about yoga is they help you set an intention for the class that you can really then channel into your life. So it's something that I really want to increase. I actually think it would be a great thing for me to do every single day, maybe not always going to a class, but even just doing some yoga at home. It's been great for my mind and my body. I'm also totally sore. My whole body hurts this week because I went to yoga twice. I went to the gym, which I haven't gone to the gym in months, but once again, trying to be a little bit more intentional with how I spend my time and what my relationship with myself looks like now that I have so much more time on my hands. And then your spirit. Now, for me, my spirit is always so closely tied to my passion. And my passion just happens to be creating content, which is why so many of the ways that I earn on an income have to do with creating content. So me and Talia have our social media content creation business. And we've talked in the past about our wedding content creation, which is just one leg of what we do. I don't know if we've ever broken this down on the podcast for you guys, but basically the way that this all started and stemmed was that I've been creating content on my page for 6 years, mostly tied to my network marketing business, but it's something that's evolved for me as time has gone on and really become a passion for me. And I love that it's something that I've been able to earn an income doing, but it is something that I would do completely for free, which is what I think your career should be. It should be something that you would do for free, kind of like this podcast. Right now, this podcast is something we do for free, that we pour time and energy into because we believe in it. We believe it will grow, but we also just love to do it. We just love to build the relationship with our followers and have that purpose. And like so much of creating content for me changed when my dad passed away, because I just know that like one day my kids will have this mecca of content to look back on and see, how I thought and how I acted when I was 29 and 28 and 27 and 26. Like my kids will literally have a digital diary to look back on. And to me, that's something I really wish I had of my dad. So it's something I'm really proud of now and something I really love. So about a year ago, I had posted a before and after of my weight loss journey, and I tagged my doctor's office because I've just had the most incredible transformation, and I really owe it to my doctor. She's the one who put me on this path to bettering myself, and she put me, was this like 2 years ago? You know what? I think it was 2 years ago I started going to her, but it was about a year ago that I made this post showing my progress. Her daughter is the manager of her office, and she reached out to me and just said, like, your post is incredible, and I was wondering if you like do content for businesses. And I was kind of like, sure, yeah. I had a little bit of experience doing it for my mom's business that I worked at. My sister had some experience doing it for our dad's company, which is a dog food and supply company. It was something I felt confident saying, like, yes, I know how to do this. I've done it for multiple different like avenues of life at this point, and it's something that I have grown into a 6-figure income for me. So I know that this is something that I can help your business be more successful at as well. So I kind of was like, yeah, for sure, like we can totally help you with that. I do it with my sister. I don't even remember, like it was something that I felt like we had talked about doing, and then that opportunity just came to be, and we started filming for our doctor's office and took over their social media, and we've been doing it for a year now. And then it grew from there. And honestly, you guys, it's so crazy, because this is why I feel like when you're very passionate about what you do, opportunities just fly your way because you are aligned with your life's purpose. We have never marketed ourselves in anything. Like we've never run an advertisement. We don't pay for any kind of marketing for anything that we do. It's all just through social media and just like referrals. And we have grown our bridal business, which is like our wedding content creation business, to I think we've booked like 40 weddings, and we've been doing that for less than a year with no advertising and all just referrals. And I believe we worked with like 8 businesses in 2024 for our social media content creation business. Now, I'm getting to the point of the story here. We've worked with all of these businesses, and we've kind of established growing these companies alongside everything else that was going on that I kind of like talked about a little bit earlier in this episode. And I've always been a little bit stuck with a brand identity and like vision for our social media and our business. And so it stopped me from like creating a website for us and posting on our social media so that we can get more gigs and making business cards and, all of this stuff. It just like held me back because I just couldn't see this vision. Last night, out of nowhere, I just get this like feeling like, let me grab my computer. I'm going to sit down and I'm going to just try to work on this website. I go to our logo. I'm not loving our logo, and I'm like just playing around with stuff. All of a sudden, I get it. I get the logo. It looks perfect, better than I had even anticipated. And from there, I start developing the website, and I get into this theme and this groove, and I'm like, oh my God, this looks so good. And then from there, I get into creating a post for our Instagram, and I make that, and I'm like obsessed with it. It's the best thing I've ever made. And everything just clicks. I was up till over 5 a.m. working on this. And literally within 24 hours, I went from having no clue to what we were doing to a whole brand identity. And why do I think that this clicked? And why do I think that January was the month that I finally got to over 10,000 followers? Because this is God's true path for me. And this is something that I had been lining up. I had been setting myself up for the day that I was going to go full time with my content creation. And I was setting myself up for the day that my safety net and my safety blanket was going to be taken away from me. But when that happened, my spirit felt good. I was excited to pursue this passion, but my mind and my body were not on the same path. And so I've really spent the last 45 days aligning my mind, my body, and my spirit. And it actually like kind of ties back to this thing that we do in yoga, or that this yoga class I've been going to on Thursday nights, the teacher says, and she kind of ends the class telling you to align your thoughts, your words, and your intentions, and for them to all be aligned and doing the same thing. It really made me realize that I wasn't doing that, and the things that I was feeling in my heart were not lining up with the thoughts I was telling myself in my head and the words that I was saying out loud. And the number one thing that I have been lacking in my life is that strong relationship with myself. So over the last 45 days, I've really been challenged to get to know myself and get to like myself. And I'll be really real with you, probably more real than if Talia was sitting next to me, because this is something that I don't really talk about. But I have had nights where I have literally sat and just been bawling, crying for hours, sitting on the floor, totally lost, feeling insecure, feeling unsupported, feeling alone. But do you want to know what gets me out of that mode and gets me into this more aligned self? Is telling myself, you are not a victim. You are not a victim to any of your circumstances. It does not matter how other people around you are acting, what other people's expectations are of you. If you're choosing to evolve today, to become a better version of yourself, if other people don't fall in line with that version, that is okay. Because you can't keep being the old version of yourself to make other people happy, but in turn, you fall out of alignment and you don't actually get to become the person you're meant to be in this life because you're too busy trying to make everybody else happy and live a life that everybody else wants you to live. Something that I really realized about myself over the last year is that I put so much value into my external relationships. My relationship with my husband, my relationship with my family, my relationship with my friends. And I became little different versions of myself with all of these people. It's funny because Talia will say that she feels like a lot of people don't really know the real me because I am kind of a different, almost like a reflection of the person in front of me. But I think the real problem is that I don't really know myself fully or who I'm supposed to be fully. And I'm getting to know her now. And I'm actually really enjoying getting to know myself. But I didn't even realize that I didn't know myself. I just knew this version of myself that was this very I've got things handled. I'm super busy, but I'm going to get it done. Pretty high vibrational version of myself, but really lacking that internal belief. And so when all of those external factors went away and I didn't feel like I had the support and I didn't really feel like I had the value and I didn't really feel like I had that safety net and I was only left with myself and my self-worth, I realized how little I was actually pouring into myself. And it was because of my poor routines and how little time I actually spent pouring into me and instead pouring into everybody else around me and trying to please everybody else around me. I would exclusively find my value in my relationships with other people. But then when those people would let me down or they would leave, they would take that value with them. And I still struggle with this. I think of one of my closest friends growing up who just decided that she didn't want to be my friend anymore. No explanation, for whatever her reason is. Maybe that's what she felt like she needed to do. There was something in our relationship that was hurting her that is unbeknown to me. I think I actually talked about this in our second episode we ever put out. But when she decided to leave without me understanding why, and I got so much of my value of who I was from her, it's something that has still hurt me for years because she is somebody that I would find security in. And when I was feeling insecure, she was somebody who would give that to me. And it's beautiful to have relationships like that. I don't want to discredit the people that you can go to in the moments when you need them because everybody needs somebody to lean on. But when you kind of are left with yourself and you're left in a house without going to a job every day and without your bad habits and you really have that blank slate and you kind of realize wow, I don't really spend a lot of time pouring into me. It's very eye-opening and it's very character building. And so I'm so dedicated right now to building the value up in myself. And when I'm going through something, teaching myself how to pull me out of it instead of looking for that value from other people. Because sometimes it's 3 or 4 in the morning and all you have is yourself. So these are the things that I am doing that have really helped me on my path to alignment. And I feel like I'm doing a pretty good job. So I feel pretty confident saying that you can take these things and implement them and you're going to be on a pretty good path as well. First of all, I want you to just think about what your passion is. Like, what is the one thing that you really love to do? Maybe it's working out. Maybe it's some kind of art activity. Maybe it's talking. Maybe it's creating content. I want you to really think about something that you do that you just love, that like, it's just fun for you. And I want you to think about how you could turn that passion into your career. And it doesn't matter if you're doing it alongside a job right now, because trust me, I get it. That passion that you have it for a reason. And if you ever want to become the most aligned version of yourself, you do have to step into the version of yourself that is living their passion every day. So think about what your passion is. Just like one that comes to mind for me that's not my passion, but something I've been like kind of tapping into on the internet that I just think is so cool is like ceramic work and pottery. Like I see these people take a passion for a hobby and turn it into like beautiful, one-of-a-kind art that I'm like, that is so beautiful. That is their passion. You can see that they genuinely love what they do. So I want you to think of that, and I want you to make time for it. Maybe you start your own podcast. Maybe you start your own business. It doesn't matter if it's making $0. Do something that you genuinely love. The second thing I want you to do is to establish a good morning routine and a good nighttime routine. And we're going to do the nighttime routine building together because that's new for me, but it's something that I'm seriously lacking. I know that it's stopping me from becoming this most aligned version of myself that I need to be the most successful version of myself this year. Super easy, 5 practices you can do in the morning that will help you be your most aligned self. Waking up early, making your bed, doing some kind of skincare or getting ready routine, doing some morning gratitude. I like to use a gratitude journal or the 5-minute journal, which is like a guided journal, and having some kind of breakfast, energy drink, coffee, whatever to romanticize your mornings. Like I know Talia loves to make her morning coffee. I love to make my morning energy stick, and I'm really loving making breakfast. And if you're not a traditional breakfast girl, I'm not either. Like I don't really like the whole eggs and bacon and toast breakfast. Like that's just never been my thing. I didn't grow up in a house where that was like really what we had, but I actually started making some of the breakfasts that my mom would make growing up, and it's like making me feel so warm and happy and aligned. It's something that like when I'm making it, I can picture myself making it for my kids one day, and it's making me feel really fulfilled and happy. My mom used to make these like German crepes called Eierkuchen, and it's super easy to make. 3 eggs, half a cup of flour, and half a cup of milk. Mix it together really good. You want it to be like a skim consistency where it's like almost a little bit bubbly, and then you put it in the pan with some butter, spread it out. It is so good. You just sprinkle some sugar on it on top. It is scrumptious, and that is what I've been doing. I also was thinking of some of the other things that I like to eat in the morning. My mom used to make farina sometimes. I don't know if you guys know what that is, but like things like that. Like it doesn't have to be the traditional what everybody else is making. I know that like everything looks so nice online when people have like an avocado toast in the morning, but like sometimes it's just having a bowl of cereal. That is your super simple, easy morning routine to just set you off on the right foot. I want you guys to also pick something for your mind that is going to feed it intentionally. Of course, if you're listening to this podcast, this counts. Personal development, self-development, whether it come in the form of a podcast, a YouTube video, a book, even the kind of music you're consuming, something a little bit more upbeat and exciting versus being like sad and gloomy. And body, we have to move our bodies, you guys. I was the biggest hater on moving my body, like hated physical activity. You might not relate to that, or you might relate to that. I would literally avoid it, kicking and screaming as much as I could. But the truth is that there's some habits that are not great in my routine that I'm not ready to kick yet, like drinking Diet Coke. Hopefully I'll kick that at some point this year. But I need to offset any of the bad decisions I'm making with some good decisions that I haven't been making. And moving my body is definitely one of them. If you're somebody who's like super low impact, go to hot yoga or go to yoga. It's such a low impact workout, but you will feel it. It's also just so good for your mind. Like I cannot stress it enough. And if you're somebody who you're like, I just hate going to the gym, I hate like walking on the treadmill or lifting weights, something Talia and I have talked about a lot recently is how we're just like class girls. We just like to go to classes. That's just like better for us. So maybe try going to a class and like don't be so intimidated because everybody starts as a beginner. Yoga is actually a great place to be a beginner. People always take breaks. You're always going at your own pace. So like highly recommend yoga if you're just starting out in something. And think of other little things that you can do to just strengthen that relationship with yourself. Like something else that I've been doing that has really made me feel like warm and fuzzy and romanticized is buying flowers for my house and making my own flower arrangements. Like it's just helping me tap into that feminine energy and that kind of like just happy kind of almost in a way, you guys, like I feel like I'm almost having this realization right now, but I'm having all of these things that are feeling very aligned for me that are more like homemaker vibes. And I've definitely talked about this on the podcast before, but like I'm 29 years old. I'm going to be 30 this year. This is always the time that I thought like I was going to, have a child, start a family, and like I'm married now, and it's definitely something that I want, and I want to start like thinking about doing soon. And I feel like all of these things that I'm really aligning with, oh my God, I'm like having the realization on the pod right now that like everything that feels right and that's clicking and that's happening and feels aligned is just all on this path to being a present mom, which is something that I have always talked about being like why I was doing what I was doing. When I started network marketing, it wasn't this immediately, but like from a year in, I was like, okay, I see these girls who are like moms who are home with their kids, and like I never thought I was going to be able to do that. I never thought I was going to be able to afford to be home with my kids. And now I'm like literally building a life where I will have flexibility for the rest of my life. I'm loving being home. I'm loving cooking. I'm loving making flowers. Like I'm loving cleaning. I'm loving the things that to me align with like being a homemaker. And I guess this is like kind of my point is like, if you set yourself up to be strong mentally, physically, and spiritually, and you are pursuing your passion and you're feeding your brain the right way, things will come into alignment for you. I didn't quit my job. My store closed. These things happen because that's how it's supposed to happen when you're in alignment with your purpose. And as you're listening to this episode, like maybe think to yourself, do I do anything like just for me, with me? Do I go to a workout class alone? Do I do anything alone? Because honestly, I did nothing alone. I was definitely somebody that like on my ride home from work, I always had to call somebody and talk to somebody and get validation from somebody. When you work entirely from home, you can't just be talking to people all day, every day. Funny, quick little story about that. I, last week, was on the phone for like maybe 6 hours straight. I had a call with a potential client, then I was on the phone with my mom, then I was on the phone with my friend for literally like 6 hours. My mouth hurt. And then I had to go to the city the next day. I had to go to Massachusetts the day after that. I had to be around people for so long and have conversations and smile for so long, and my cheeks literally hurt because I hadn't stopped talking. Like, you just can't be talking all the time. You have to spend time alone with yourself. And I just think that when you take the time to build that relationship with yourself and become very secure in who you are, it's just such a vital part to getting on this path to alignment. And you have to be on the path to alignment to live your most fulfilled life. If you're not finding the success that you feel you should be finding on social media or in your career, it's because you're not in alignment. The moment that these things started happening for me and I started pouring into myself and I started establishing a good routine and I started believing in my vision, I started confronting myself with kind of those thoughts of being alone and those thoughts of like, am I going to be successful? And really had to find it in me to build myself up in those moments. Pair all of that with the consistency and the action of showing up on social media. But that's when everything started clicking. That's when I hit over 10,000 followers on TikTok. That's when I started getting better engagement and better relationships and more conversations on Instagram. It's when the logo design and the website design and the social media design for my business finally started clicking. That is what it feels like when you come into alignment. I literally want you to think of it almost like if you have a dislocated elbow or shoulder or something and you're popping it back into place. That is what shifting into alignment looks like. Right now, you might be living in a reality that's not feeling 100% right. You have some excuse for why you're not where you want to be in life, but the truth of the matter is that you're probably not facing yourself. You're probably not having the relationship with yourself you need to have the conversations with yourself to get you to the place you need to be in. So I challenge you this week to start making some of those vital shifts. If there was anything I mentioned on this episode that you're like, you know what? I've been telling myself I'm going to do that. I've been telling myself I'm going to go to the workout class. I've been telling myself I'm going to start making breakfast. I've been telling myself I'm going to start getting up earlier. Commit this week. I did something maybe it was like 2 or 3 years ago, called Delusion Week. So even if you want to say to yourself, like, just for this week, actually, I love to tie in a little bit of my dad, usually whenever I do a solo episode. But something I think about with my dad is a story he would tell when he talked about quitting smoking. And he would tell himself, I'm just not going to smoke today. And I think it's similar because our dad was in AA, and I think they maybe have a similar technique in AA, which is just like, I'm just not going to drink today. I'm not going to say I'm never going to drink again. I'm not going to say I'm never going to have cake again. I'm not going to say I'm never going to have a cigarette again. I might even have a cigarette in 3 days from now, but I'm just not going to have one today. Kind of using that philosophy. And then obviously you build on that every day, and then you eventually don't crave the things you crave anymore. Almost taking that philosophy and spinning it on yourself and saying to yourself, just for today, I'm going to just be delusional. And I'm just going to do what the most successful delusional version of myself would do today. This was my last day on earth. How would I spend it? If the way I spent today was how I was remembered for the rest of my life, what would I do? If I had a video camera following me around all day, showing what a day in my life looks like, what would I be doing? Is it what you're doing currently? Or are there some things that you would maybe want to change a little bit? So like I said, about 2 or 3 years ago, I did this thing called Delusion Week. And it was that I was going to live delusionally for a week. For 7 days, I was going to get up early. I was going to do a workout. I was going to do, all of these things. And the point is that you do them and then you start to establish a good routine and you start to do something every day. And you're like, okay, I'm just going to keep doing this because it feels good. So my challenge for you this week, until we're back again next week, is to have your own version of Delusion Week, or even if you just have to start off with one day and just say to myself, just tomorrow, I'm going to wake up early. I'm going to have breakfast. I'm going to have a good routine. I'm going to have a good mindset. I'm not going to let external factors get in my way. I'm not going to let fear and anxiety take over the way I respond in my relationships. I get to choose to be happy, and I get to choose how I react to things. And the way that other people treat me, and the way that other people act towards me, and the way that other people have expectations of me has nothing to do with how I'm going to show up. I'm going to show up as the best version of myself, and I'm going to pour all of that energy I was pouring into everybody else into me for a little bit. And by being the best version of yourself, you then get to be a better person for them. And you get to rub off on them a little bit. Instead of looking for that value and that validation from them, you get to be that person. You get to be it for yourself, and maybe you get to be it for them. And it doesn't suck anything out of you because this is just who you are. You're just this radiant being that's just exuding positive, aligned energy. So I really want you to dedicate this next week to doing things that are just for you. Even if you tell yourself next Tuesday, I'm not doing this anymore. This week, I'm going to sit down and I'm going to make breakfast and I'm going to eat at the table while I journal instead of watching Netflix while I'm doing it. Just make the little shifts that you know are really best for you just for this week and just see how you feel. And I want you to see that when you're doing this, see if any of these other external factors start to shift. See if the thing that you've been waiting for it to happen, if it starts to happen, if things start to be like, wait, I actually hit that milestone. I believe that it's going to, but I want to hear from you guys if it does. So listen to this episode and let me know next week. We have our Big Sis Chat linked on our Instagram. So if you don't follow us on Instagram, it's the iWorld Podcast. Go to our links and we have the Big Sis Chat. If your week changed after this week, so you don't have to tell me right now, obviously, because we're just doing this now. But before next week's episode, I want you to write in the Big Sis Chat and let me know if these shifts and these changes and this relationship building within yourself, if it changed your week and if anything miraculous happened for you. I want to hear it because you know what, guys? When you speak these things into reality, you become an energetic match for it and you attract more. So it's the same thing with negative stuff as it is with positive stuff. So if you're constantly saying I'm not good at that, kind of like what I said at the beginning of this episode with Theo Vaughn and Tony Robbins, talking about the words you put out there, you're programming your brain to think this is normal and this is reality. So if you tell yourself it's really hard for me to look in the mirror and like what I see, and you say that out loud, stop saying that out loud. Tell yourself and tell other people, no matter how silly it sounds, even if you don't want to say it to the people around you, write it in our Big Sis Chat and say, when I look in the mirror, I love what I see. I love the improvements I've made. I never realized how beautiful I was. I never realized how great of a smile I had. Start to focus on the positive things because that is what you become a magnet for. But the words that you say and the thoughts that you think matter. And I know it can be really scary to be alone with your thoughts and spend that time with yourself and stand up to people who maybe don't treat you the best and start to set healthy boundaries for yourself. Like, these things can all be really challenging on this path to becoming the best version of yourself. But prioritizing you and building that relationship with you is what's going to put you on the path to where you're supposed to be, what you're supposed to be doing, and who you're supposed to be around. I hope you guys liked this episode. Thank you so much for tuning in with me. I hope you guys have a bang in February. Like, I cannot wait to be back with you guys next week. Actually, you guys, next week, wait, what's today? So next week, normally we film on Fridays. We are actually going to be in Nashville. Me and Talia are going on my friend Abby's bachelorette, so maybe we'll film there. I don't know what our schedule is going to look like, if we're going to have any downtime to record for the podcast. We will either be in Nashville for the next episode or recapping Nashville with you guys when we get back. If you tuned in all the way to the end, it would mean the absolute world to us if you could subscribe to our channel, whether you're on Spotify, on YouTube. Every subscription and like and comment means literally the world to us. We get so excited. So if you like this podcast, please let us know in the comments. Just give us a like, give us a subscribe. It really means the world. We love you, and we'll see you next week.